Hey guys, tonight we begin with the damp cellar walls, lice combs, and the slow decay of 18th century linen. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments what time it is for you and where you're tuning in from. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The linen hangs slack from the beams above your head, wet and sour with the scent of mold and soap that never quite rinses out. You wake beneath it, wrapped in a blanket that has more holes than warmth, your back pressed to the packed dirt floor that clings to you like a second skin. The cellar is always wet, not just damp, but wet. Wet in the walls, in the air, in your bones. You breathe, and your chest fills with the cold taste of rot. Above you, the laundry sways slightly in the stale draft, droplets falling now and then onto your neck, your eyes, your lips. You push yourself up slowly. Everything moves with resistance. Your joints ache, your muscles creak, and your scalp itches from the creatures you know live there. The lice never left. They don't care about soap or scrubbing. They cling, lay eggs, and wait. You'll comb them again today. You always do. That's part of the work. You run a hand through your hair and feel the fine teeth of yesterday's comb tucked behind your ear like a knife. It's already bent from too many passes. Your hands are cracked. The soap is made of ash and lard, and it strips your skin as well as the linen. You dip your fingers into the basin by the wall, its water gray and thick from use. The bar of soap floats crookedly. You wash your face, but there is no freshness in it. Just a ritual. Just motion. Above, someone moves across the floorboards. Footsteps like muffled drums. You're not alone down here, but no one speaks. They rise in silence, same as you, same as every morning. The drying lines sag under the weight of soaked linen. Everything is brown or yellowed or green-stained from the walls. Nothing stays white. The cellar breathes a kind of mildew that dyes everything over time. Your blanket, your shift, your hands. You rise, wrapping the blanket around your shoulders, stepping barefoot over the thin rivulet of water that always leaks in from the east wall. It's cold. It always is. In the corner, the wooden rack leans sideways. It holds the fine shirts, the ones too delicate for the brush. You'll have to press them today, not with an iron, but with the smoothing stone. Heavy, flat, and cracked from the drop last winter. You touch its edge as you pass. The cold of it transfers through your fingers into your wrist, your arm, your shoulder. You carry that cold with you all day. You sit on the low stool beside the comb table. It's covered in broken teeth. Fragments of old lice combs discarded after too many heads. A candle stub smolders nearby, its wax pooled around a bent pin and a burnt splinter. You light another, but the flame barely fights the cellar gloom. You pick up a fresh comb, rub your thumb along the teeth, and sigh. The air shifts faintly. Someone opens the trapdoor above. A face appears, eyes rimmed red from smoke or sleep. They toss down another sack of linen. It lands with a wet slap. You flinch but say nothing. The face disappears. The light from the door is gone. You pull the sack toward you. It smells of sweat and old vinegar. Another day. Another round of combing, rinsing, wringing. You begin before your stomach growls. Hunger is useless now. There's only the linen and the cellar and the ache, and the work begins. You take the first shirt from the sack and it clings to itself, a knot of wool thread and human oil, soaked in whatever had seeped into the skin of the man who wore it last. It doesn't matter who he was. They're all the same down here. Shirts from upstairs, from the street, from the infirmary. No names, only stains. You pull the sleeves straight, fingers numb, and begin to unstick the fabric from itself, careful not to rip the seams. The collar is stiff with dried spit and something darker. You don't flinch. This is the work. The wash basin behind you is already cold, though someone heated water hours ago. The warmth doesn't last in stone walls. You dip the shirt, push it under the surface, and feel the slow release of filth curling into the water like ink. It smells worse when it's wet. Everything does. You scrub with the soapstone, grinding the bar against the underarms, the cuffs, the back. Your hands sting. The cracks split wider and you don't stop. You never stop. Beside you, the second girl starts combing her own scalp. She doesn't speak, just pulls the comb slowly through her hair, biting her lip when it snags. She winces, checks the teeth, and taps the lice into a chipped dish. You glance once. 4 already. 2 crawling, 1 bloated. You return to the shirt. The water is darker now. You wring it out as best you can and hang it from the uppermost line. It drips immediately. It always does. Nothing dries in this place, only stiffens. The press stone waits. You ignore it for now. There are still more shirts. You pull another from the sack, this one torn at the side, blood in the weave. You don't know if it's fresh. It never matters. Blood doesn't come out. You soak it anyway. The room darkens slightly. One of the candles sputters out. The cellar isn't windowless, but the slits in the far wall offer only a sliver of gray. Today, there's fog beyond them, or smoke. The air doesn't move. You breathe slowly through your mouth. It helps. A little. A noise above. Boots on boards. They walk with purpose, not like the house children. This is a man. Heavy. Fast. You pause. The girl beside you pauses. The sound stops, then continues, heading toward the trap door. Your shoulders tense. The latch lifts. He doesn't come down, just opens the hatch and waits. You smell pipe smoke, cheap tobacco, sharp and sour. A sack drops, but he doesn't speak. The hatch closes with a dull clap. You wait. The silence resumes. The new sack is heavier. It lands wrong, splits at the side. Linen spills out, sheets mostly, and a coat. A fine one. Red lining, black wool, not servant clothes, not poor. You hesitate. The girl watches. You touch the fabric. It's stiff but clean. Mostly. One sleeve is torn and the lining is damp. You look away. You begin again. Rinse, scrub, wring, over and over. The water thickens. The smell deepens. Your stomach curls in on itself. You press your lips tight. There's no food coming. Not until night. Maybe not even then. The girl hums now. A low, slow tune. No words, just sound. You don't recognize it. You don't ask. You pick up the comb, run it through your own hair once, twice. You feel something catch. You tug. A snap. A flick. Into the dish. Your fingers are shaking. You dip them into the basin again. Water up to the wrists. Skin raw. You whisper something. Not a prayer, not a curse. Just breath turned into sound. The candle guttering beside you flares and then steadies. You reach for another shirt. The linen clings. The line above you sags. The lice comb waits. And the work never ends. The third shirt is heavier than it should be, soaked through and stiffened in strange places. The collar edges curling inward like dried leaves. You don't stop. You've handled worse. You push it into the basin and watch the water darken instantly. A cloud blooming from the fabric like a wound reopening. The soapstone barely helps. You grind until your wrist aches, lifting the shirt and turning it to reach the seam under the arms. The thread is already loosening. You keep going. The girl beside you has stopped humming. She's working faster now, shaking her comb after every pass, wiping the lice onto her apron instead of into the dish. She's too young to be here. They always are. Her scalp bleeds in one spot, a scratch too deep. She doesn't seem to notice. You don't point it out. There's nothing to be done about it anyway. A drip falls from the ceiling. You don't look up. The stones above have leaked for months. No one repairs them. The water runs down the walls, streaking the lime with brown and green, feeding moss that clings to the corners where the drying racks lean. You wring the shirt and hang it beside the others. The line sags more with each piece, bowed like an old spine. The first shirt hasn't dried at all. Its wet hem brushes your forehead as you pass. You return to the sack and find a pair of stockings, coarse, stained, one heel worn through. You don't know why they send these down. They can't be mended. Still, you rinse them. The basin water is nearly black now, and it stinks. You reach for the wooden bucket and fetch a fresh fill from the barrel at the far end. The barrel water is colder, but no cleaner. You pretend not to see the floating grit. You carry it carefully, arms trembling, and pour it slowly to keep from splashing the floor. Your shoes are already soaked from earlier. Someone coughs in the corner. An old woman, wrapped in layers of rags, crouched near the heating stone. It hasn't been warm in weeks, but she stays beside it as if the memory of heat might return. Her eyes are closed, lips moving soundlessly. She was a washer once. Her hands shake when she tries to fold. Now she just watches, breath slow and shallow. You avoid her eyes. The boy appears briefly, young, barefoot, his coat 2 sizes too big. He brings nothing, takes nothing, just checks the sacks. He leaves without a word. You watch him disappear up the ladder, his footsteps like a sigh across the boards. You listen until they fade, then bend again over the basin. Your arms are sore, not tired, used up. The shirt in your hands now is thin with wear, its cuffs unraveling into threads that twist like wet hair. You don't even try to scrub them. You just rinse, fold, and hang. The comb is waiting, but your scalp stings already. You give yourself a moment. You close your eyes. The air smells of ash and mildew and the faint sting of iron. The girl rises to empty her dish. She tips the lice into the fire grate. They sizzle faintly before they're gone. You feel something crawl behind your ear. You reach for the comb. It's time. You part your hair and draw the teeth down slowly. The scrape is sharp. A catch. Another. You wipe the comb on the cloth. 3, maybe 4. They don't matter. Tomorrow there will be more. Your shirt is damp against your chest. The candle beside you has burned low. You don't light another. You don't need to see. Your hands remember the work. The sack isn't empty. The line is still full. The water is still cold. You pick up another shirt. Begin again. The light is almost gone now, though it never filled the cellar to begin with. What remains is a dim yellow halo around the stump of the last candle, flickering against the stone walls, barely strong enough to reach the racks. You don't look toward the windows. There's nothing beyond them but dark and the silhouette of creeping ivy pressing from outside. It makes the cellar feel deeper, like the ground might keep sinking while you work. You reach for the smoothing stone. It lies flat on a splintered plank beside a pile of half-dried cloth, its surface slick with the residue of soap and skin. You slide the next shirt onto the pressing board, careful to line the seams, your hands trembling from the cold. The fabric sticks to the wood as you try to spread it. It doesn't want to open. Nothing here wants to open. The weight of the stone is real. It drags your shoulder downward as you lift it with both hands and place it on the shirt, pressing with your full body. The stone does what fire cannot. It flattens without scorching. It silences without burning. You drag it across the back panel of the shirt, the motion slow, even, mechanical. You've done this so many times the muscles in your arms no longer resist. They just ache, deep and dull, like a sound inside your bones. You flip the shirt, press again. Steam rises faintly, though there's no heat. Just moisture being forced out, pushed to the edge of the cloth and into the air, where it joins the rest of the Cellars' breath. You feel it on your neck, cool and clinging. You try not to think about what's in it. Behind you, the girl sighs. Her hands are red now, rubbed raw from scrubbing the cuffs of someone's bedclothes. She's cut her finger on a pin left in the lining. The blood is already dry. She wipes it on her skirt without looking. Another shirt, another stone pass. You hear the wood creak under you as you lean forward. Your feet have lost feeling again, toes curled in your shoes like they're trying to hide from the cold. You don't move them. If they go numb completely, that's tomorrow's trouble. A drop falls from above. It hits your cheek and slides down your neck. You flinch. It's colder than the air, colder than the water. You rub it away, but the chill remains. The old woman mutters in the corner, a low string of sounds that once might have been words. You glance at her. Her eyes are closed, her hands clasped. Not prayer, just repetition. She's trying to remember something. Or forget. You look away again. The candle flickers hard and then steadies. It's burning fast now. The wick is short, the wax guttered down the side like a crumbling wall. You don't replace it. You just work faster. The rack is nearly full. Shirts hanging heavy, sleeves dangling like arms too tired to rise. The smell of damp cloth thickens the air, sour and intimate, like a body too long in bed. You press the final shirt and place it carefully over the bar. It brushes your arm as it swings. You don't react. The girl lays her comb down. She's stopped counting. There's no point. The lice will return. They always do. She gathers her things, cloth, soap, the basin half full, and sets them aside for the morning. She doesn't look at you. She knows you'll stay longer. You always do. The candle gives its last flicker, then dies with a hiss. The dark falls all at once, like a blanket dropped over your head. You don't move. You listen to the drip of water, the rustle of linen, the creak of the stone cooling under your palms. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to end the day. Tomorrow the trapdoor will open again. Another sack, another basin, another set of shirts. You don't hope. You don't dread. You simply begin again. The morning doesn't come with light. It comes with footsteps, heavy ones, slow. A scrape against the trapdoor latch, the dry squeal of iron on wood, then the dull creak as it opens inward. You don't look up. You're already awake, already sitting with your back to the cold wall, knees to chest, watching the dark become less dark. The girl is still asleep on the far side of the racks, curled on a flattened linen sack, blanket twisted around her feet. She doesn't stir. The boots descend, one step at a time. It's the tall man. You know him by the rhythm. Right foot heavier than the left, leather cracked, heel worn. He doesn't speak, never does. Just lowers a new sack onto the floor, lets it fall, then climbs back out, closing the trapdoor behind him. No light comes through, just the echo of his weight retreating into silence. You stay where you are for a while longer. Your legs ache, but not in a new way. The ache has lived there for weeks, maybe months. You stretch them slowly, wincing as blood returns to your feet. You reach for your coat and pull it tighter. The lining is damp again. It never really dries. Nothing here does. The new sack is larger than yesterday's. It leans against the press board, tied with twine that's already fraying. You crawl to it, untie the knot, and ease the top open. The smell hits you first. Wool and rot. Something metallic beneath. You reach inside and pull out a uniform jacket. Not house clothes, military. You pause. Blood on the sleeve, soaked through, dark and stiff. The cuff has been burned. You set it aside carefully. Another garment follows. A shirt, linen once white, now gray with streaks of yellow and black. You shake it out. One sleeve is missing. Torn, not cut. You don't ask questions. They don't belong here. You carry it to the basin and begin. The girl wakes behind you. You hear her cough, a dry sound, followed by the shuffle of cloth. She doesn't speak, but you feel her watching. She'll wait for her turn at the water. There's no hurry. The day is long and the work doesn't end. You scrub the shirt slowly. The stains don't move. The soap slides useless across the fabric. You grind it in harder, your knuckles scraping the board. The blood lifts slightly at the edges but sets deeper in the center. You know this one won't come clean. Still, you try. You always try. The girl approaches, her basin clutched to her chest, sleeves rolled high, eyes dull from half-sleep. She doesn't meet your gaze. She never does in the morning, just waits until you step aside, then begins her own washing. Her hands shake. You pretend not to see it. The cellar fills again with sound, not noise, but the soft chorus of repetition. Water sloshing, fabric slapping wood, the slow drag of comb through hair. You sit on your stool, comb in hand, and begin again. The teeth catch near the crown of your head. You wince, pull, flick. Into the dish. 1, 2, 4. Your scalp burns, but you keep going. Another shirt, another jacket, another set of socks stiff with filth. You lose track of how many. The line above you sags lower now, brushing your shoulder when you stand. You shift to the other side of the room, set up a second rack. The legs are uneven. It wobbles as you load it. Midday passes without you noticing. The only signal is your stomach turning in on itself, a dry knot of hunger with nothing left to grip. You don't stop. You don't ask. You reach for another garment, press it under the water, and feel the fabric dissolve slightly at the seams. You hold it there longer than needed, watching the water darken. The stone beside you waits, cold and patient, and still, you work. Because it's what there is. Because it's what remains. You press the soaked garment flat on the board, the cloth so thin in places it nearly splits under your fingers. The weave was never strong to begin with, cheap linen, made quickly, made to be discarded. But it has lasted this long, and now it belongs to your day. You reach for the smoothing stone, still damp from yesterday's work, and slide it across the fabric. The weight steadies your body. You lean into it, shoulder grinding forward, wrist stiff. The shirt gives off a sharp odor as it warms under pressure, something between mildew and old meat. You don't flinch. It's not the worst you've smelled. The stone catches on a fold near the collar and you lift it slightly, adjusting the fabric. The motion is practiced now. There was a time you'd tear seams without meaning to, hands too rough, grip too firm. But the work trains you. Pain trains you. The girl beside you coughs again. It's deeper now. She's dropped the comb and crouched over her basin, her hands braced on the rim. Her breath fogs the water. You don't say anything. You wait. After a moment, she straightens and wipes her mouth with the back of her sleeve. Blood streaks her lip. She spits into the drain hole in the floor and keeps going. There's no room for stopping, not in here. You place the shirt on the rack. It droops immediately, water dripping onto the boards below. The old stain darkens as it spreads. It'll dry brown, like all the others. You press your palm to your thigh, trying to bring life back to the muscles. Your legs are trembling again. You crouch to fetch another piece. From the far end of the cellar comes a new sound, a scratching, a rustle. You look up. A rat, bold in the dim light, noses through a pile of discarded cloth. Its fur is patchy, its ribs visible beneath the skin. It pauses, stares at you, then darts behind the woodpile. You don't chase it. You just make a mental note to check the laundry pile for holes. The girl hisses suddenly. She's sliced her finger open on a shirt pin. Not deep, but enough. She wraps it in a strip of linen, torn from the hem of a ruined shift. You nod at her once. She nods back. No words. You return to the basin. The water is greasy now, film floating across the surface. You reach for the next shirt. This one is heavy, coarse wool, stained black at the hem. You submerge it. The water closes around your arms like a mouth. You feel the temperature steal your warmth again. You don't shiver anymore. Your body has learned better. Behind you, the rack groans. The weight is too much. One of the supports cracks, a low splintering sound that makes both of you freeze. You move slowly, unhooking the last two shirts, shifting the weight, propping the frame with a broken board. It holds. For now. Above, there's movement. Boots on the floorboards. You tense. The trapdoor stays shut. The girl hums again. Not the same tune as before. This one is slower, more fragmented, like something remembered in pieces. It fills the space between your ears, soft and distant, and for a moment the work seems quieter. You lay the shirt flat. Press. Turn. Press again. The stone slides with less resistance now, the fabric giving way without a fight. You wipe your sleeve across your forehead. The dampness there is your own. Maybe sweat. Maybe the room. Maybe the air is growing warmer. You doubt it. You hear the girl's basin tip. Water spills across the floor, soaking the edge of your coat. Neither of you reacts. You lift the next garment and begin again. Because nothing waits for you beyond the next shirt. Because the cellar doesn't stop. Because neither do you. You blink slowly as the stone drags across the shirt, the edge catching again near the shoulder seam. You shift your weight, fingers numbed from the damp, and press harder. The fabric flattens, but it doesn't look clean. Nothing ever looks clean down here, just less wrinkled, slightly straighter, as though that illusion of order could make the garment new. You know better. The dirt lives deeper than the surface. The girl steps away from her basin, limping slightly. Her foot must be swelling again. She crosses to the rack and hangs a cloth that's too torn to matter. It falls crooked, the sleeve slipping through the string. She doesn't fix it. You wouldn't either. What difference would it make? The candle stump is nearly gone. The flame dances wildly for a second as the wick reaches the last pool of wax. You glance at it, then back to the shirt. You don't bother trimming another. The dark will come soon anyway. Let it. You wring the final shirt of the stack and notice the blood stain at the collar. Fresh, still red. You look at your fingers. The cut from yesterday has opened again. You hadn't felt it. You watch the water bead along the side of your hand before dripping into the basin. You rinse your palm without urgency. Pain doesn't mean much anymore. The old woman stirs in the corner. Her rags shift, her legs stretching. She's not dead yet. You hear her mumble something, a name maybe or a number. She used to work beside you, before her hands curled, before her breath thinned. Now she just watches, says things no one hears. Or maybe she's talking to someone who's already gone. A knock sounds above. Not a sharp one, just one thud, like a boot heel against the frame. You don't move. Neither does the girl. The trapdoor doesn't open. It's just a signal. They do that sometimes. Remind you that the world above still exists. That someone is up there, not thinking about you. You sit for a moment longer than usual. The rack is full again. The board is wet through. Your coat sticks to your back. You shift slowly, arching to stretch your spine, each vertebra cracking like twigs. The girl mirrors you. It's the only break either of you allows. Then you reach for the comb. Your hair is tangled from sweat and the damp. You part it with your fingers and start from the nape, dragging the comb upward. A sharp snag. You grit your teeth. 2, maybe 3 lice. You wipe the comb on your sleeve and keep going. Another stroke. Another catch. The itch is worse when you stop. You can't stop. The girl watches, her hands motionless now. She'll go next. You always trade. One watches, one combs. That way someone is still working, even when the lice are being counted. You finish the back, move to the sides. A few more. One egg clings to a strand, white and firm. You pluck it, flick it to the floor. The dirt eats it. You don't look again. The basin has gone still. A film of dust floats on top now. The water beneath is thick and silent. You don't empty it yet. You'll need it again soon. You press your hand to your chest, feel your heartbeat through the linen. Still there, still slow, still you. The cellar breathes around you, walls damp, cloth sagging, the sound of fabric settling on a warped rack. You rise again, slowly. Your knees ache. Your back doesn't straighten all the way. The air smells of rust, of wool, of wet stone. You step toward the new sack, untie the string, fold it open, and begin again. The sack opens with a soft crackle, the cloth stiff from salt or sweat or simply age. You reach inside and pull out the first layer, a shift, still warm somehow, though that must be your imagination. No warmth lasts down here. The linen is twisted, stained yellow along the chest, damp with something more than water. You don't hesitate. You never do. You carry it to the basin and submerge it without looking too closely. The water greets it with a sigh, dark threads unfurling from the fabric like smoke underwater. You press it down, your hands disappearing beneath the greasy surface. The shift resists at first. Cloth always does. Then it gives, collapsing inward like something that's forgotten its shape. You lather the soapstone along the hem, the cuffs, the places where skin clings longest. The suds are thin, quick to vanish. Beside you, the girl mutters to herself. You glance over. She's scraping a brush along a set of stockings, knuckles white. Her mouth moves in rhythm with the bristles, though no words rise loud enough to hear. She's lost in it, or hiding in it. You understand the difference. The old woman sleeps again, or maybe just drifts. Her mouth is slightly open, one hand curled into the rags around her chest. You rinse the shift and hang it carefully. It drips immediately, cold beads striking your collarbone as you pass beneath the rack. Your own shift sticks to you now, damp from the air, the basin, your own breath. You consider changing it, but think better of it. You've only one more dry one, and even that is questionable. You return to the sack and find another layer. A kerchief this time, small, delicate, embroidered in a thread that was once blue. There's a tear through the center, likely from teeth. You wash it gently, fingers moving slower, more deliberately. This kind of cloth is meant to be noticed upstairs. Down here, it's just more to clean. The candle is gone. No flame remains. You've grown used to the dark again. how your eyes adapt to the blur, how your hands learn by memory. You work by feel now. You don't need to see the dirt to know where it hides. A breeze stirs through the cellar, not from above, from the walls, through the cracks between the stones. It smells of frost and wet leaves, a reminder that the world outside is still turning. You breathe it in, sharp and cold, and let it settle in your lungs. It feels foreign, too clean. You cough once, then return to the work. The girl hums again. Her voice is thin. A lullaby, maybe, or something close to it. The sound doesn't reach the corners of the room. It hovers, draping over the racks and the basin, muffling the scrape of combs, the splash of water. You let it be. It's not for you. It's not for anyone. It just is. Another shirt. Another rinse. You press the smoothing stone into it with shaking arms. The weight feels heavier today. Or maybe you're weaker. It's hard to tell. The difference is small but growing. Outside, a bell tolls faintly. Far off. One chime, then another. You don't count them. Time here isn't measured in bells. It's measured in shirts, in comb strokes, in how long it takes for a stain to give up. The girl coughs again. You look over. Her lips are blue now, just slightly. She doesn't notice. She's still brushing, still humming. You reach for the next cloth. The sack is half empty now, half a day left, maybe more. And so with your back bent, your hands raw, your eyes adjusting again to the dark, you begin again. Because there's always one more. Always. The shift in your hand slips from your grip as you lift it from the basin. You catch it by the hem just before it falls back into the dark water. It clings like skin, heavy and limp, water running in thin streams from the sleeves and sides. You press your thumbs along the seams, feeling for weak spots, places where the cloth will give out soon. There are too many. The linen is tired, like everything else down here. You wring it carefully, twisting from the shoulders down. The strain pulls at your wrists. Your fingers lose strength halfway through, and you have to pause, pressing the shift against your knee. When you finish, the fabric is cold and still dripping. You carry it to the rack and lay it gently over the lower bar, spreading the weight to keep the line from dipping further. The girl is no longer brushing. She sits on the floor now, comb in hand, staring at her knees. Her hair hangs wet and tangled around her face, the teeth of the comb resting against her palm. She's not asleep, just not working. You don't say anything. There's nothing to say. She'll move when she moves. You kneel again by the sack. Another garment, an underbodice, stiff with sweat and hardened by weeks of wear. You know the shape of it too well. The folds that never unfold. The boning that sticks out at the sides like ribs. You plunge it into the basin. The water slaps softly, then quiets. You begin scrubbing. The soap slips from your hand twice. On the third fall, it disappears beneath the shirt already soaking. You feel for it, hand submerged up to your elbow, fingers dragging along the bottom of the basin. You find it by touch, a soft lump, smaller than it was yesterday, rounded at the corners from use. You lift it back, press it hard into the fabric, smear and grind it over every stain. Your knuckles burn. The cloth scrapes them raw. You stop looking at your hands long ago. The skin is thin in places, cracked open in others. Your nails are black underneath, not from dirt, but from bruising. Still, you work. A creak above. The trapdoor moves slightly, then stills. No footsteps, just a presence. You tilt your head, listening. A breath, maybe imagined. Then nothing. You turn back to the water. If they come, they come. If not, you keep going. The underbodice is done, or done enough. You wring it quickly, hang it between two shirts, let it slump. It will dry into a shape no body should wear, stiff and bent, but it will pass inspection. That's all it needs to do. The girl stirs. She runs the comb through her hair once, twice, a slow rhythm. You hear the faint tick of the teeth catching on something. She flicks her fingers, wipes them on the floor. Her lips move, counting or cursing. You can't tell. The air shifts, a new draft. This one sharper, edged with smoke. Someone stoked a fire upstairs. The scent drifts down through the boards, charred wood, resin, the sweetness of pine sap. Your stomach tightens. You haven't smelled real heat in days. You sit back for a moment, rubbing your eyes. The stone bench beneath you is damp. Your coat is soaked through. You take it off and wring the hem, watching water drip onto the floor. You leave it in a heap beside the rack. One more cloth, one more rinse. The basin is murky now, the water still but thick. You stir it with your hand before lowering the next shirt, and you begin again. Because the work doesn't end. Because you wouldn't know what to do if it did. The water in the basin has turned, not just cloudy but thick, a skin of scum floating across the top, broken by your hand as you reach in for the next shirt. It's the kind of filth that clings, not just to fabric but to skin and breath, the kind you smell in your own hair when you lie still at night. You hold the garment up, a man's undershirt. Once white, now a pale gray-brown, pocked with dark patches, elbows worn through. You scrub, not to clean, but to erase the last set of hands that held it. You run the soap along the hem, pausing where the seams have begun to part. You've learned the feel of failure in fabric. It's not soft or frayed. It's sharp, like breath caught too hard in the throat. The stone bench beneath you is cold against your thighs, the wet pressing through your skirt. You adjust your weight, trying to keep your knees from locking. The girl is on her feet again, slowly hanging her cloth along the rack. Her steps are uneven. She limps on the left now, foot wrapped in rags. You watch her fingers work, thumb and first two, the others curled stiff. She touches the cloth like it might burn. You know that touch. It comes when the nerves have worn down and the skin no longer trusts itself. You finish with the shirt and hang it. The sleeves drag. The line dips again. You think about removing something old to make space, but you don't. Let the old hang longer. Let the weight spread. If the line breaks, it breaks. There's rope somewhere in the corner, frayed but strong enough. You reach for the smoothing stone, pull the next shirt flat, and begin pressing. The stone glides more easily now, the moisture from the shirt lifting in slow wisps, though no heat follows. You press harder, arms shaking. The shirt stays silent. No cloth here complains. They only sag, absorb, submit. Outside, something caws, a bird, distant, harsh. You look up. The cellar window is black again. You don't know when the sky darkened. Afternoon must have slipped past without pause. You don't mark hours anymore, just the space between sacks, the time it takes for your sleeves to soak through. The old woman coughs once. Her chest rattles, a sound too big for her thin frame. She pulls her rags closer and stares at nothing. Her mouth works, shaping words no one can hear. She might be praying, she might be counting. You don't ask. The girl returns to her basin. Her movements are slower now, more mechanical. Her comb lies untouched on the edge. She doesn't reach for it. She starts with another sock instead, brushing at the heel with a cloth wrapped around 2 fingers. Her lips are pale. Her eyes don't blink as often. You finish pressing the shirt, fold it roughly, and set it on the dry side of the bench. It's not dry, not really, just less wet. Your fingers twitch as you reach for the next cloth. A scarf this time. Fine. Delicate. Probably never meant to be washed in a cellar. You lay it across your knees, pick off the largest flecks of filth before submerging it. The water resists. The scarf floats. You force it down, palm open, until it sinks. You hold it there. Watch the bubbles rise, break, vanish. Your hand begins to cramp. You let go. The scarf rises again. You sit back. The basin smells like iron now. Your hands like soap and mildew. The girl hums again, faint, almost broken. You reach for the next piece. The stone is slick with residue. You wipe it with your sleeve and start again. Because the basin is never empty. Because the rack is never full. Because the work never ends. The scarf lies across the board now, wrung out but still clinging to every bit of damp it can hold. You smooth it with the edge of your palm, feeling the threads pull against each other, warped from too many rinses, too many hard hands. It was probably silk once, or something close to it. You press it flat, then reach for the smoothing stone. You don't press down as hard this time. The cloth is too fine. It wouldn't take the weight. Your fingers are beginning to swell. You notice it as you shift your grip on the stone. Joints thickened, skin taut and pale, knuckles reddened from use. It's not the cold, it's the endless contact. Wet to dry, fold to press. The body forgets how to rest. You lift the stone and run it slowly across the center of the scarf. The motion is soothing, even as your wrists burn. The girl has gone silent again. She leans over her basin, not working now, just watching the water. Her hands hang limp at her sides. Her hair falls forward, strands catching in the edge of the basin, floating like threads in a storm drain. You don't call to her. She'll return when she can. Everyone breaks a little here. The trick is remembering how to move after. You finish with the scarf and hang it carefully on the far line, one corner pinned between two heavier shirts to keep it from blowing if the window ever opened. It never does. Still, the habit of caution remains. You walk back to the bench, roll your shoulders, and wipe your palms down your front. The linen is gritty with soap. The fabric of your own shift is almost as thin as the one you just washed. You think about that sometimes, that your body has started to resemble the cloth it handles. Faded, worn, pulled out of shape. From the shadows near the heating stone, a sound rises, not words, a moan, low and sharp. The old woman. Her arms shift under her blanket. She coughs, not the soft rasp of usual, but a deep crack from inside her chest. She gasps once, then quiets. You wait. One breath, then another. Still alive. You turn back to your work. The sack is almost empty. A few more shirts, a rag, a bonnet, crushed and yellowed. You lift one shirt and begin to scrub again. The water no longer accepts new stains. It's past the point of being useful. You should change it, but your arms won't carry another bucket yet. So you clean in filth, the same as always. The girl stirs behind you. She coughs once, then returns to combing. The sound of teeth dragging through knots joins the rhythm again. You listen without turning. Your stomach cramps suddenly. You clutch at it with one hand, bending slightly. No food yet. Nothing since the dry crust 3 nights ago. You exhale slowly through your teeth. Hunger comes in waves now. This one will pass. You press the shirt down into the basin, rub harder than needed. The cloth fights back, resisting until it gives. You rinse, twist, shake. The floorboards beneath your feet squish faintly, soaked from hours of overflow. A slug moves near the corner of the bench. You don't step on it. There's no reason to. The wind rattles faintly through the stones. The girl whispers a number to herself. 46. Then silence. You lift another shirt. It drips before you even reach the basin, and you begin again. Because that's what you're made of now. Cloth, salt, motion, and the quiet between drops. You pause just briefly, with the next shirt draped over your lap, your hands resting flat on the wet linen. It's hard to tell if the cloth is trembling or if it's just your fingers again, the constant twitch of muscles that never fully stop. You trace the edge of the collar, feel the broken stitch at the seam. It pulls loose like a thread unraveling from the base of your spine. There's no light left now. Whatever glow the cellar borrowed from the slit windows has vanished. You know the dark by its weight, how it settles in the corners of your vision, presses against your temples, seeps into the back of your throat. The candle stub is long since burned out. You haven't lit another. The matches were damp anyway. Still, you work. You bend over the basin and push the shirt into the water. It folds and resists, like it doesn't want to open. You grind the soap against it, working a spot near the front where something thick and dried has sunk deep into the fabric. Blood again, or something worse. It flakes slightly under your nail, then dissolves. You press harder. The girl moves beside you, silent, returning a shirt to the rack. She hangs it crooked, then leaves it, not bothering to adjust. She crouches again at her station, reaching slowly for the next piece. Her knees crack as she lowers herself. You hear her breath catch, the small hiss between her teeth. She makes no sound beyond that. The basin water is a murky slurry now. You reach into it, searching for the soap that slipped from your grip again. It's nearly gone, worn down to a shape like a pebble, barely worth holding. You use it anyway, running it along the hem, your thumb sliding with it for pressure. The cold has numbed your palm, but the pressure keeps it moving. Another cough from the corner. The old woman again. It doesn't sound right. It's shallow, struggling. You look over. Her shoulders rise and fall, barely. The blanket slips down her arm. Her hand is limp, fingers twisted into unnatural shapes. She doesn't move to pull the blanket back. You want to walk over, say something. But the thought of standing makes your legs ache. You turn back to the shirt, wring it out slowly, water streaming down your arm to the elbow. You hang it on the lowest rack, next to a pair of stockings too small for an adult. Your own shift clings to you now, wet from sweat, or maybe from leaning too close to the basin. You don't know anymore. You adjust your sleeves, roll them tighter, feel the sharp edge of a comb tooth still lodged in the cuff. You pull it free and set it gently on the table. It clicks against the wood. The girl drops her comb again. This time it skitters across the floor. She doesn't reach for it, just stares at where it landed, her face blank. You stand slowly, joints stiff, and walk over. You crouch, pick up the comb and hand it to her without speaking. She takes it with both hands like it's fragile, then begins again. You sit back down, lift the next cloth from the sack, and dip it. The sound of soaking fabric is quiet, but you hear it. It fills the space between your breath and hers, between the rasp of the old woman and the whisper of the wind through the cracks in the wall. You rinse. You wring. You smooth the cloth with one palm. And once again, without question or pause, you begin. The cloth in your hands is thin, almost transparent in places, the edges fraying into long, loose threads that cling to your skin. You pull it from the basin, watching it sag under its own weight. It smells of mildew and something bitter. Old soap that never rinsed out properly, the kind that sits in fabric like a memory. You hold it aloft for a moment, letting the last of the water run off your fingers, then drape it across the board. The smoothing stone is cold. It always is. Even when you've handled it for hours, it refuses to take your warmth. You slide it across the cloth gently this time. The fabric won't survive pressure. You guide the stone by fingertips only, barely enough to flatten the wrinkles, more to give the appearance of care than any real effect. The shirt is too far gone to be worn again, but it will be passed along anyway. That's how it works. Behind you, the girl mutters something. You don't catch it. Her voice is too low, too dry. She doesn't repeat it. You hear her comb again, slow, tentative strokes that tug at her scalp. Her breathing is shallow, just enough to keep rhythm. The old woman hasn't stirred for a long time. You glance over. Her chest doesn't rise. Her blanket has fallen to the floor, rags barely holding the shape of her limbs. Her head leans back, mouth open, eyes closed. You don't check. You've seen this before. You know what it means. No one will come for her tonight. You return to the shirt, fold it once, twice, then set it aside. It makes no sound. The rack is nearly full again. You hang the shirt at the end, letting the sleeves fall limp. There's no breeze to stir them. You take another cloth from the sack. A small apron stained with grease, the strings tangled into a hard knot. You try to pull them loose, but the knot is old, wet, too tight. You soak it first, then use the edge of the comb to pry at the center. The knot resists, then begins to loosen with a snap that echoes faintly in the damp air. You work slower now, not from fatigue, but from certainty. There's no rush. The sack is never truly empty. Even when the cloth is gone, something remains. Another basin to clean, another line to mend, another stitch to tug free. The cellar always finds something for your hands. The candle box sits near the wall, but you don't move toward it. The dark is enough. Your eyes adjust with every hour. You know where each board creaks, where each nail juts out. Your body remembers in place of light. The girl stops combing. She wipes her face with her sleeve, then begins folding the garments she's finished. The folds are uneven, soft corners rounded like wilted leaves. She places each piece beside the wall, not stacking them, just laying them gently, as if not to wake something beneath. The water in the basin has grown still again. A thin sheen of oil glistens on the top. You break it with your hand, dipping the apron once more, pressing it under until the knot softens fully. You lift it slowly, let the water slide away in long, trembling strands. You don't wring it yet. You press it between your palms and hold it there. The air in the cellar tastes metallic now. The scent of rust has joined the mildew. You breathe through your nose, shallow and slow. You press the apron flat, run the stone across it. Once, again. You fold it with care and reach for the next, because that's all there is. Cloth, cold, silence, and the motion you make in the dark. Your back aches now in a deep, grinding way that no shift of posture can soften. The stone bench beneath you has shaped itself into your spine, or maybe your spine has learned to accept the bench. Either way, there's no comfort left in sitting, but standing won't help. You tried that earlier. Your knees locked, and the blood in your legs moved like syrup. So you remain, hunched over the cloth, fingers numb and glistening from long hours in the basin. The apron you just pressed lies folded beside the others, edges still dripping. It will dry badly, creased wrong, sour-smelling, but it's finished. That's what matters. You stretch your hand toward the sack again. Only 3 garments remain. You lift the next one slowly, hoping for something simple, something light. It's a bodice, heavy, stiff with old starch and sweat, seams pulled at the underarms, the back damp from what you hope was only water. You set it on the board and begin rubbing at the inside lining. The cloth resists. It's the kind that soaks up filth without ever releasing it. The soap doesn't bite. You use your fingernails instead, scraping gently along the threads. You know better than to tear. Even if the stain stays, the shape must remain. That's the rule. The girl has stopped folding. She sits with her knees pulled up to her chest, chin resting on her arms, eyes wide open but unfocused. Her mouth moves slightly. She's mouthing words, not speaking them. You recognize the rhythm. Psalm or hymn, maybe something she was taught to recite when she was small. Something meant for light and warmth. Down here it drifts into the stone and vanishes. The air is thick now, heavier than before. You feel it pressing against your chest with every breath. Your throat itches. You cough once, low and short. The sound startles no one. You return to the bodice. You rinse it slowly in the basin, watching the water swirl with a dull gray tint. You wring it with both hands, feeling the threads stretch, then give. A small tear opens near the side seam. You press it closed with your thumb. You won't repair it. You don't have the thread. It will be sent upstairs like that. Maybe someone will notice. Maybe not. The old woman hasn't moved. Her blanket has slipped farther down now. One arm is exposed, skin like parchment, blue at the edges. Her fingers don't twitch anymore. You try not to look, but your eyes find her anyway. You wonder how long it takes. You wonder who will come to take her. The rack nearest the wall is full. You hang the bodice on a nail instead, its shape sagging like a slumped figure. You step back, stretch your arms, flex your hands. Your knuckles are swollen. One finger is beginning to split near the nail. You wrap it quickly in a strip of old cloth, torn from the hem of your own shift. The blood dots through almost instantly. The girl has fallen silent again. She rocks slightly, just a bit, like she's listening for something deep below the floor. You hear it too, the faint creak of the foundation, the whisper of earth pressing against stone. The cellar groans like it knows you're still here. You kneel. Take the second to last garment. A scarf, dark, soft, almost clean. It's a kindness. You fold it gently, no soap, no stone. Just a rinse. Just a moment to hold something that doesn't resist. You hang it on the highest line. It catches no light. And then you reach for the last piece. Because even in the dark, even in silence, there's always one more. Always. The last garment in the sack is a man's nightshirt. Long, coarse, worn thin across the back, the cuffs stained and frayed. It's lighter than the others, though not from fabric. Just emptier. Like it's already given up more than it had to begin with. You hold it a moment before folding it over your arm, carrying it back toward the basin, your steps soft in the soaked grit beneath your feet. The basin water is still, no ripples, no steam. It doesn't smell anymore. Or perhaps your nose has grown past noticing. You stir it with your hand, dislodging a slow swirl of sediment, then lower the shirt in. The fabric folds as it sinks, collapsing inward on itself like a paper flower left out in rain. You begin to scrub with what's left of the soap, your fingers doing most of the work now. The bar is barely more than a nub, slimy and translucent, crumbling with each stroke. You don't care. The nightshirt doesn't resist. Behind you, the girl has fallen asleep. You can tell by the way her head leans to one side, the slow slump of her shoulders. Her arms are wrapped around her knees. She breathes with a quiet rhythm, so faint you listen to it between every movement of your own. She hasn't eaten today. Neither have you. It no longer makes a difference. You rinse the shirt carefully, lifting it in both hands, twisting gently to avoid further tearing. The water that streams out is dark, tinged with something yellow that won't be named. You ring it again, then carry it to the board. The stone waits. You lay the shirt down, lining the seams with your palms, pressing the collar flat. The stone glides this time, its chill softened by hours of touch. You use slow, steady pressure. You don't hurry. There's nowhere else to be. From the far corner, the old woman exhales a sound that is not quite breath, not quite word. It rises and then stops like it was never meant to reach your ears. You turn toward her briefly. Her eyes are open now, but unfocused. Her chest rises once, then waits. You press harder. The shirt flattens into shape. You fold it once, holding the edges tightly, smoothing the creases as best you can. Then you stand. Slowly. Your knees resist. You feel the pull up your thighs, through your spine, into the base of your skull. You walk to the rack, hang the nightshirt beside the scarf. It sags gently. No breeze stirs it. The sack is empty. Utterly. You lift it to be sure. Turn it inside out. Nothing. You set it aside near the steps, the cloth crumpling with a soft sound that reminds you of old paper. You return to the bench. Sit. Rest your elbows on your knees. Your hands hang loosely between them, wet and raw. You flex your fingers one at a time, watching the skin pull tight over bone. They don't feel like yours. A quiet settles over the cellar, the kind that comes after every motion has ended, where even the walls seem to wait. You listen to the girl's breath, to the stillness of the racks, to the faint creak above, as if someone shifted in sleep. You reach for your own comb, slide it from your coat pocket. The teeth are bent, too broken, still sharp. You run it through your hair once, twice. A catch. You stop. The basin gleams dully. The garments drip. The old woman lies silent. The girl sleeps. You sit, and you wait. Not for more, not for less, just for the cellar to breathe again. And when it does, you'll begin again. Because that's what you do. Because that's all there is. You sit with the comb in your lap, your thumb running along its cracked spine, feeling each broken tooth like a missing name. The cellar hums softly now, though no real sound rises. It's the weight of things left unfinished, of things that never truly finish at all. You lean forward slightly, spine hunched, head bowed, like someone caught in quiet prayer. Though your lips don't move, the girl shifts in her sleep. A sharp intake of breath, a faint grunt, then stillness again. Her cheek rests against her knee, curls damp against her skin. Her fingers curled into her chest like she's protecting something small and fragile that only she can see. You resist the urge to wake her. There's nothing better to wake to. You stand slowly. The motion brings the ache back to life, knees stiff, lower back pulled tight like a twisted rope. You stretch one leg, then the other, bracing yourself against the rack. The nightshirt you hung there drips against your knuckles. The water is cold, always cold. You wipe your hand on your shift. The sack remains empty, a collapsed shape near the trap door. You step toward it, toes pressing into the wet earth. The stones are slick now, darkened from hours of dripping cloth. You press your palm to the side of the basin and lean there for a moment, letting your weight rest. The smell is still strong, soap, skin, iron. You breathe through your mouth. There's no candlelight, only memory of it. The cellar is all shape now, all outline. You know the board's width by heart. You know where the comb will land when dropped. You know how to walk the space in silence. Your body has learned it all, step by step. You reach for the smoothing stone one last time, not to use it, just to hold it. You lift it from the board, turn it in your hands. Its surface is slick, smoothed from decades of linen. Your fingers find the chip at one corner, the place where it cracked last winter. You rub your thumb over it slowly, then set it back down. A creak above, then nothing. It wasn't the trap door, just the ceiling settling, or a rat. You stay still. You've learned that most sounds are not meant for you. The girl mumbles in her sleep. A name, maybe, or not a name at all. You can't make it out. You sit again. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to stop seeing. In the dark behind your eyelids, the cellar feels larger, endless almost, a space outside of time. You think of linen not yet sent, of shirts stained before they arrive, of fingers that will reach into the next sack just as yours did. You picture another pair of hands, younger maybe, or older, doing the same thing, wringing, folding, scraping cloth against board until blood shows under the nails. The old woman does not move. Her mouth hangs open, her chest still. You've stopped checking. If they come for her tomorrow, they'll take her in a sheet you likely washed. If they don't, she'll remain, part of the cellar like the basin in stone. You hear a rat now, just behind the stack of crates. The soft scritch of claws on wood. You don't move. It won't come near. You place the comb back in your pocket. Wrap your coat tighter. The wetness soaks through anyway. And still, you wait. For what, you don't know. For the trap door to open again. For another sack. For nothing. Until then, you remain. Still, bent, quiet. And when it returns, as it always does, you'll begin again. The hours stretch, long and flat. There is no more work to do, yet you do not leave. You stay seated, arms resting limp over your knees, back curved toward the rack like a vine clinging to a crumbling wall. The cellar holds you, not by force, but by familiarity. It is the only place your limbs understand now, the only space that doesn't ask questions. The girl stirs again, a slow shift of limbs, the sigh of breath through dry lips. She opens her eyes briefly, blinking into the dark. You hear the scrape of her fingers against the floor as she steadies herself, then the rustle of cloth as she pulls her coat tighter. She does not speak. Neither do you. Words have little place here, where actions are constant, and meaning comes from motion. You hear her move toward the basin, feel her footsteps in the tremble of the boards. The water has gone cold and slick, but she dips her hands anyway, splashing it gently, perhaps just to feel something against her skin. You don't turn to look. You know the shape of her routine, the timing of her pauses, the way she wipes her palms dry on the same patch of skirt every time. The candle box still sits unopened. No one bothers anymore. Fire feels like too much now, too clean, too brief. Better the dark, which stays. The girl kneels beside the rack, checking each piece. She touches the seams, lifts the corners, presses down on the folds. Her hands move like she's memorizing the garments, not preparing them. You watch her for a moment, then lower your gaze. Your own shift is clinging to your back again, damp from sweat, soaked at the hem where it trails in the puddles near the pressboard. You don't adjust it. You stopped caring about comfort days ago, maybe longer. You no longer remember the feel of dry fabric against your skin. From the stone wall behind you, water seeps through a hairline crack. You've seen it before. A thin, clear trickle that finds the lowest groove in the floor and gathers slowly in a shallow pool beside the crate stack. You watch it for a time, listening to its faint, rhythmic drip. It is the only sound in the room. The old woman has not moved. The rags around her are flat now, empty of tension. You remember her eyes, once sharp, her hands, once swift. You do not mourn her. She is not gone yet. but she is also not here. The girl crouches by the empty sack and lifts it gently. She folds it twice, then lays it atop the bench. Her hands linger on it longer than they need to. She stands, wipes her face, and sits beside the stone press. Her shoulders slump. Her breath slows again. A thud above. Then silence. You look up. Nothing moves. The trapdoor does not open. No voice calls down. Just the building settling, perhaps. Or someone walking past, unaware. You pull your comb from your pocket again. Not to use it, but to hold. It is smooth now from hours of fingers. The teeth worn, one cracked clean through. You trace it again and again, not thinking, just existing in the rhythm. The girl leans her head against the wall and closes her eyes. You hear her whisper something, maybe a prayer, maybe a number. It fades before it finishes. You rest the comb on your thigh. Your breath slows. You listen. To water, to cloth, to stone. And you wait. Because that's all there is. Waiting for the weight to return. And when it does, you will lift it again. As always, the stillness settles thick as wool. Even the water dripping from the ceiling has slowed, each drop taking longer to fall, landing in the same dent in the stone with a soft, wet tap. The basin stands unused now, the water within gone tepid and stagnant. You haven't touched it in some time, and the thought of dipping your hands back in makes your skin tighten. Still, it waits, as it always does. The girl is quiet again. She hasn't moved since closing her eyes, her cheek pressed to the wall, her knees drawn up beneath her coat. Her breath barely lifts her shoulders. She might be asleep. She might just be pretending. You used to do the same. Close your eyes and listen, hoping the world would change in the dark. But down here, nothing ever changes. Not really. The racks are full. Every line sags with the weight of damp cloth, sleeves hanging like empty arms, collars folding inward as if ashamed. You scan the shapes without thinking. You know which pieces are finished, which are folded wrong, which seams will need mending once the stitching thread comes, if it ever does. You used to correct them. Now, you just watch. From the corner, you hear a faint creak, wood shifting. Maybe the crate, maybe the frame, or maybe something beneath it. You don't look. There's nothing to see. Just movement in a room where nothing moves. Let it be. Your feet are soaked through. You lift one heel slowly, feel the wet squelch as your sole peels from the floor. The skin is soft there, pink and waterlogged. If you stay too long without drying, the skin will split. It always does. But you keep your boots on. You don't want to see what's underneath. You reach for your coat and wrap it tighter. It's cold now, colder than before. The kind of cold that doesn't bite but settles deep, threading into your bones like thread into a hem. You press your hands into your armpits, trying to hold something of yourself inside. The motion is more habit than help. The girl shifts in her sleep. Her head rolls sideways. A strand of hair clings to her cheek. She doesn't wake. You wonder what she dreams, if it's of upstairs, of warm meals, of sunlight, or if the cellar has followed her into her dreams, folding itself around her even there. You suspect it has. There is no escape from a place that remembers you. You hear a mouse now, scrabbling behind the pile of rags near the drain. It pauses, then scurries into the dark, its claws clicking faintly against the stone. You used to trap them. Now, you let them pass. They don't take much. You understand that kind of hunger. Your stomach knots again. A deep, low pull, like a thread being tugged through a thick cloth. You ignore it. The ache has dulled with time. Hunger is no longer a thing that sharpens. It just lingers, quiet, constant. You pick up the comb again, turning it between your fingers. You don't use it. You just feel its shape, the familiar tug of splintered wood, the tiny crack where one tooth snapped clean. You wonder how many heads it's touched, how much it's carried. You wonder what it remembers. The air is still. Your breath comes slow. You close your eyes, not to rest, not to escape, but to hold the dark with your whole body. You listen, to dripping, to breath, to the silence between. And when the trapdoor creaks again, because it always will, you will rise. You will take the next sack, the next shirt, the next weight, and begin again. Because this is where you remain, where the cloth never stops, where you wait, always, in the cellar. The next time the trapdoor opens, it does so slowly, without the thud or haste you've grown used to. Just the creak of wood yielding under old hinges, then the groan of the iron latch dragging across damp grain. You lift your head, but don't rise. You've learned to wait, to let the sound finish itself. The girl stirs beside you, her eyes half opening, then closing again. She doesn't lift her head from the wall. Light doesn't follow the opening. Only the muted sound of steps above, 3, maybe 4, and then the shadow of movement in the space between the beams. A bundle drops through. No voice, no name, just the sack. It lands with a sound that's too soft for how heavy it must be. You hear the man step back, the door creaks shut again, and the cellar returns to its old breath. You remain seated. So does she. The sack lies in the center of the floor, its corners dark with damp, a twisted knot holding the top shut. It doesn't move. You wait. The stillness stretches until it breaks of its own weight. You stand first, your legs slow to unbend, boots squelching faintly as you shift your weight. You step toward the sack, crouch, untie the knot. Inside, more of the same. Linen, wool, stained and stiff. One piece smells of smoke, another of bile. You recognize the scent of bedclothes long lain in by someone dying. You pull one shirt free, unraveling it from the rest. It sticks at first, then comes loose with a slow, tearing sound. You rise, carry it to the basin. The water is foul again. You never changed it. It's thick now, dark, the surface broken only by the reflection of the racks above. You push the shirt under, watch the ripples rise, then reach for the soap. What's left of it lies in a sliver on the rim, flattened and cracked. You smear it between your palms and begin. The girl hasn't moved. She watches from the wall, her eyes barely visible. She's listening. She knows the sound of your hands in the water, the scrape of fabric against the basin's edge, the whisper of cloth surrendering to pressure. She will rise eventually, when the rhythm calls her back. The shirt is worse than it looked. There's a burn hole near the hem, a smear of something along the sleeve that doesn't lift. You scrub anyway. You rinse, scrub again. Your knuckles knock the basin edge once and pain flares through your hand. You ignore it. You wring the shirt and hang it low, near the rack's end where the other failures lie. The girl finally shifts. She rises slowly, eyes distant, and walks barefoot toward the basin. You step aside. She doesn't thank you. She doesn't need to. She lowers a garment into the water and begins to scrub. The cellar fills again with the old sounds, water sloshing, cloth against board, the weight of the day settling back into the air. You press your palms together once to chase the numbness, then return to the sack. Another piece, another press. You don't count them. You gave that up long ago. It doesn't matter how many come. There will always be more. You don't speak. Neither does she. The only voice left is the one in the fabric, the voice of sweat, of blood, of skin that doesn't belong to you, and yet it passes through your hands. You work slowly, steadily, without pause, because that's what the sack asks of you. That's what the cellar demands. And so again, with water thick and silence deeper than sleep, you begin. The shirt in your hands is dense, the fabric thick with dried matter that resists the water. You plunge it deeper into the basin, using your forearm to press it down until the bubbles stop rising. When you lift it, your fingers slip across the wet folds, catching on a seam that's begun to unravel. You turn it over, locate the worst of the stains, and begin again with the stone, though you know it won't be enough. Nothing will. The girl is working beside you now, though her movements are slow and half-formed. She drops a cloth back into the water without scrubbing it. She stares down at her hands as though trying to remember what they're for. You glance at her briefly. Her skin is grayish, lips cracked, hair stuck to her forehead in strands. She doesn't look up. She won't unless she needs something. The basin water is foul. Each rinse brings a new layer of filth to the surface. Bits of lint, hairs, small scabs of unknown origin float like petals in decay. You reach to skim them away, using the flat of your hand to push them aside so you can work. The smell rises with the motion, sour and sharp, like spoiled broth. You breathe through your mouth. Above you, the ceiling shifts again. A beam groans. Dust drifts down in a thin, straight line, falling across the sleeve of your coat. You brush it away slowly. The cellar holds its breath for a moment, then resumes. The shirt is ruined, you realize. You keep working anyway. You press it against the basin's edge, wring it, slap it down on the pressboard, and reach for the smoothing stone. It slips in your grip, your hand too slick, and thuds against the floor. The girl flinches, then stops moving entirely. You retrieve the stone. A new chip has formed along one edge. You run your finger over it and feel the sharpness. You press lightly into your palm, not enough to cut. Just enough to know it's there. You slide the stone across the shirt, but it catches at the tear. You adjust the fabric, fold the ruined edge under itself. It looks better now. Not clean, not whole, but better. You hang it without pride. The girl drops another piece into the basin. The splash echoes, louder than it should be. She coughs, then wipes her mouth with the inside of her wrist. A red smear remains. She doesn't notice, or she does and doesn't care. You return to the sack. Another shift, thinner. You can see through it in places. It smells of lavender, faint, old. A remnant from upstairs. You press it to your nose. The scent makes your stomach turn, not from rot, but from remembering. You dip it gently, watching the water darken further. The lavender vanishes quickly, just wet cloth now. You begin scrubbing, careful not to tear the weave. Your back begins to pulse, a steady, aching throb. You straighten briefly, then bend again. It's safer to move slowly, to let the pain settle in without protest. The old woman is still unmoved. Her body has begun to slump further, one hand slipping free of the rags. Her fingers curl inward, pale and hollow. No breath stirs her chest. No one remarks on it. You finish the shift, press it quickly, fold it with some care, and place it near the girl's pile. Another cloth, another basin, and again, with no promise of finish, you begin. Because this is the rhythm. This is the law. This is what waits in the dark. The girl no longer hums. That sound faded hours ago, swallowed by the water and cloth and stone. Now there is only her breath, shallow and irregular, and the scraping of your hands against fabric that no longer softens with soap. You work by feel. There's no need to look anymore. Your hands know the stains, the folds, the subtle shifts in texture where a rip waits to open. The sack is half full again. You hadn't noticed them dropping another. Perhaps it was left during one of the hours you floated somewhere between motion and rest. Your body still, your eyes open, your mind dulled to absence. It doesn't matter. It's here now, and so it must be emptied. You lift another piece, a pair of trousers this time, men's, wide-legged, thick with wear. The knees are stained with something dark that stiffens the fabric, and the pockets are sewn shut with a clumsy hand. You wonder briefly why, then stop. Curiosity wastes time. You drag the soap along the inner seam and begin scrubbing with the stone, pressing until your wrists feel loose in their sockets. Beside you, the girl slumps forward. Her hand falls into the basin with a soft splash. She doesn't pull it out. You turn toward her. Her eyes are closed. Her head rests on the edge of the basin, cheek to wood, her lips parted. She isn't asleep, not deeply, just faded. You watch her for a moment, then return to the trousers. The water absorbs everything. Dirt, blood, soap, breath. You rinse the cloth and hang it on the lower rack. The wood groans again. You make a note to shift the weight soon before it cracks entirely. You pull another piece from the sack. A chemise, light, meant for someone smaller. It's torn along the neckline, the ties broken off entirely. You clean it anyway. You do not choose what is worth saving. You do not ask who wore it or who will again. The cellar has grown colder. The draft that used to drift from the wall has thickened into something more constant. It snakes along the floor, curling around your ankles. You can't tell if the cold comes from outside or from the cellar itself, breathing in the absence of heat. You shift your legs to keep your feet from numbing. It doesn't help. The old woman remains as she was, her body now part of the room. You do not look at her directly, but her shape defines one side of the space. You've already begun to move around her without thought. Her death is a quiet one, a waiting one. She will not be missed loudly, just silently, like a corner cleared of dust. The girl moves slightly. Her fingers twitch. Her head lifts. She blinks once, twice, then wipes her face with her sleeve and returns to work without looking at you. You nod once. It's enough. You soak the chemise, then press it carefully. It folds neatly, despite the damage. You place it on the bench, then reach into the sack again. The fabric is damp already, perhaps from the weight of the others. Perhaps it arrived that way. You begin to clean it, because this is the rhythm, this is the act. Because in a world where nothing is ever truly clean, you do what you can. You wash, you wring, you fold. And without asking why, you begin again. The cloth in your hands is coarser than the last, likely a servant's apron or the lower hem of a coat. It bears no embroidery, no color, just the blank gray of long use. The fibers have thickened where filth has pressed into them over time, and the weight of the fabric pulls on your wrists as you lift it into the basin. It drinks the dirty water greedily, turning darker before your eyes. You scrub slowly, methodically, each motion practiced but heavy. The soap crumbles further in your grip, leaving flakes that dissolve before they reach the stain. You switch to your fingernails, dragging them along the edge of a mud smear that might just be dried blood. There's no way to know. You stopped needing to know long ago. The girl is moving again, though slower than ever. Her hands tremble at the basin, and she leans forward too far, using her arms to hold herself up. Her comb lies forgotten beside her on the floor. You consider handing it to her, but don't. Let her choose when to resume. Let her find her own rhythm again, if she still can. The old woman remains unchanged. Her shape is now only a suggestion under the rags. The girl hasn't looked at her in hours. Neither have you. There is nothing left to look for. You wring the apron hard, twisting the cloth until water spills in a quick stream that splashes across your boots. You don't flinch. You carry it to the rack and place it along the edge, where the air is still and drying takes longer. There is no rush. It will sag, gather mold at the corners, stiffen into the shape of the room. The basin water is nearly black now. When you reach in, it coats your forearm like oil. Your sleeve sticks to your skin, the wetness pressing cold into your elbow. You pull out the next garment, a shirt, small, child-sized. It smells of old smoke and sweat. One sleeve is torn off entirely. You look at the frayed edge, then begin. The stone slides more easily now, your hand moving with less resistance. You've stopped noticing the pain in your wrists. It's become background, a quiet hum behind each motion. Your shoulders ache when you lean forward, but you let them. It's easier not to resist. The girl drops something, a cloth or her comb. You don't turn. She doesn't retrieve it. You hear her breath catch, a short gasp, then silence. She resumes her scrubbing, but the rhythm is off. Jerky, disjointed. Her sleeve is torn at the elbow. Her skin underneath is mottled with red and gray. You place the shirt on the board, press it gently, then fold it with care. It rests easily in your lap before you carry it to the bench. The weight is nothing. The act is everything. From above there's a sound, a faint thud, a shifting creak, then the dull impact of another sack dropped onto the top step. You hear it settle. You hear nothing else. No voice, no instructions. You glance toward the trap door, then back to the floor. You don't move yet. The sack will wait. You take the last cloth from the current sack. A bonnet, crushed and frayed. A ribbon missing. The threads unravel in your fingers. You lower it into the basin slowly, letting it float there for a while, watching it spin gently with the motion of your hand. You wash it. You rinse it. You press it between your palms. And once again, without a word, without a thought, you begin. Because there is no end. Only the next thing, the next cloth, the next stillness. You don't reach for the new sack immediately. It sits at the top of the steps, slouched to one side like a sleeping animal. The silence around it is thicker than before, as if the cellar itself resents its presence. You watch it for a while, the twisted knot at the top half undone already, strands of linen sticking out like tangled roots. You let it wait. Everything waits down here. The girl dips her hands into the basin again, her fingers stiff and slow, like someone trying to remember how movement works. Her nails are cracked now, one hanging loosely from the edge of her thumb. She doesn't react. She just lowers a cloth into the water and leans forward, letting her head hang over her knees as she scrubs without rhythm. You press the bonnet flat on the board. It's not a proper shape anymore, the fabric too warped to fold correctly. You run the smoothing stone over it anyway, more for the habit than the result. The bonnet's torn edge curls as you press it. You force it flat, then you fold it once, twice, and carry it to the bench where the others rest. The pile is growing again. You walk toward the steps, slowly. Each motion drags behind you like a wet shift on stone. Your boots slip slightly on the damp floor, but you don't fall. Your hands grip the edge of the sack and you pull it down with a low grunt, letting it slide across the floor toward the basin. It leaves a trail of damp behind it. The cloth inside is heavier than usual. You open it. Inside, blankets. 4, maybe 5. Not meant for washing. Not really. But they've been soaked in something. Maybe rain, maybe worse. They smell of rot. You pull the first one free. It sags in your grip, a wet mass of wool and mildew. You drag it to the board, too thick for the basin, too heavy to lift all at once. You press it down, then kneel beside it, forcing the soap into the surface like trying to mend old leather. The girl watches now. Her eyes are open, her hands still. She doesn't move to help. You don't ask her to. You scrub along the edge of the blanket, working in long, slow circles. The wool resists. It absorbs the soap, but refuses to change. You rinse the corner in the basin, then return, repeating the process until your arms feel hollow. You hang the blanket over the widest beam you can find. It folds like flesh, heavy and shapeless. Water streams from it immediately, pattering against the floor in small, sharp impacts. You take the next one. It smells worse. You don't pause. The girl turns away. You hear her coughing again, a thin, dry sound. She curls up near the old woman's corner, her body barely distinct from the rags and shadows. Her shoulders rise once, then nothing. You drag the third blanket to the basin, folding it in on itself to fit. You kneel and begin. The water darkens with each touch. Above, a footstep, then another, slow, heavy. Someone stops at the trap door. You hear the shift of weight, the wood creaking, but they don't open it. They don't say anything. They simply wait a moment, then walk away. You lift the blanket, your arms shaking, your back a dull scream. You drag it to the rack and begin again. Because the sack is not empty. Because your hands still move. Because there is always one more. Always. The fourth blanket is folded tighter than the rest, wrapped like a body, seams fraying in uneven lines. You try to lift it, but it slips from your hands, falling back into the sack with a sound like wet stone on meat. You crouch lower this time, slide your arms under its weight, and drag it across the floor, letting the fabric collect ash and dust along the way. It leaves a trail of moisture that darkens the path between the steps and the basin, joining the hundreds of others that have dried and reappeared like veins. You push the blanket into the basin. It barely fits. The water rises instantly, spilling over the sides in thick brown waves, pooling on the floor beneath your knees. You feel it soak into your skirt, your stockings, your skin. You keep pressing down. The fabric gives reluctantly, refusing the basin's shape, fighting to retain its own. You press harder, arms shaking with the effort, elbows locked. Behind you, the girl has moved again. She sits upright now, her legs pulled beneath her, her hands tucked into her sleeves. Her eyes are fixed on the blanket you hang to dry, the one that still drips steadily into the center of the room. She doesn't speak. She never does anymore, but her lips move, just barely, counting perhaps, or praying. The old woman hasn't changed. Her blanket has begun to stiffen, folds crusted into place by the cold. Her arm lies where it fell yesterday, fingers slightly curled, palm turned upward as if she's still waiting to receive something. You keep your eyes on the basin. You scrub along the edge of the blanket, lifting one corner to reach the inner seam. It's matted with something foul, black and stringy. Hair, perhaps. You don't flinch. You dig your fingers into the cloth and scrape. Bits of debris lodge under your nails. You ignore them. The water is beyond saving. Each rinse is like dipping the blanket into rot. You lift it anyway, water cascading from the edge in slow, syrupy drips. You hold it there for a moment, watching the trail of filth slip down your arm, then step back, dragging the weight toward the wall. There is no space left on the racks. Every line sags, heavy with garments and blankets that have absorbed more cellar than soap. You loop the blanket over a pipe instead, folding it carefully to keep the worst of the tears hidden. It hangs like a shroud. You rest for a moment, hands on your knees, chest rising and falling in shallow waves. The air is thick, heavy with breath and mildew. You swallow, and the taste of iron clings to the back of your throat. The girl starts to comb her hair again, slowly. One stroke, pause, another. She winces when it catches, then continues. The sound of teeth through knots joins the water's slow drip and the creak of wood above. You turn back to the sack and lift the final blanket. This one is different. Finer wool, no obvious stains, a faint trace of perfume long since faded. It was kept separate on purpose. You rinse it gently without soap, just water over cloth, smoothing the wrinkles with your palm. You fold it with more care than the others, press it flat, then lay it across the bench. Your hands linger on the fold. You look around. The basin is still. The sack is empty. The girl is silent. The old woman sleeps forever. And yet you know it isn't done. There will be another knock, another sack, another shirt, another stain, another night. And so you wait. Not with hope, not with fear, but with the certainty that when the next wait comes, you'll begin again, as always. The cellar is silent now, as if even the stone has grown tired of echoing the same wet footsteps, the same breathless coughing, the same drag of wool across board. You sit back down on the bench, your spine unwilling to hold its own weight anymore. Your legs stretch in front of you, toes curled within soaked leather. You do not remove the boots. You don't remember when you last did. The girl has stopped combing. The teeth of the comb lie across her palm, her fingers barely curled around them. Her hair is parted roughly, the line zigzagging over her scalp where lice once hid. She breathes through her mouth now, slowly, too slowly. You think she may not speak again, not ever, but you don't mourn it. Words are unnecessary here. They bend under the same weight as fabric and rot. The old woman has not been moved. You don't expect she will be tonight. Her body will stay until someone remembers to remove it, or until another must sleep in her place. That is the way of things here. One leaves, another enters. The washing goes on. Above you, a single footstep. It doesn't continue. Whoever it is has paused at the trap door. You wait, eyes on the dark wood, wondering if it will open, if another bundle will fall, but nothing comes, just stillness. Even the cold has settled into a comfortable discomfort, no longer biting, only filling. You glance at the sacks, empty, flattened against the steps. The basin is black again, the soap is gone. The smoothing stone sits at an angle on the board, a droplet of water clinging to one corner, suspended in decision. You reach for it, not to work, but to place it back on the shelf with care, your fingers brushing the splinter in the wood where it always rests. The racks drip. One blanket slips slowly from its line, the weight too great. It lands without sound, folding into a damp heap. You do not move to fix it. You lean your head back against the wall. A sharp edge presses into your skull, but you don't adjust. The pain anchors you, keeps you from drifting. You've learned that drifting leads to memories, and memories rot faster than linen. The girl coughs once. Her head turns slightly, eyes half-lidded. She is looking toward the door, though it remains shut. She doesn't rise, doesn't speak, just looks. Her hands rest in her lap like forgotten things. You think about standing, about rinsing the basin, but your arms remain slack. Your body has taken root here, along the edges of wet stone and tired breath. There will be more. Another shirt, another sock, another comb dulled by too many heads. The rhythm will return. Perhaps in an hour, perhaps in the next day, but it will return, and you will answer it. Not because you want to, not because you must, but because there is nothing else. Because the basin remains. Because the racks never stay empty. Because your hands remember even when you wish they wouldn't. You close your eyes. Not to rest, just to forget how it looks. The girl leans her head against her arm. The stone wall hums beneath you. The air thickens. You wait. And when it comes again, because it will, you'll begin again.